home, I went straight through to the kitchen. Monster climbed out of his bed when he saw me, his tail wagging and his tongue dangling out the side of his mouth. I gave him a bone-shaped biscuit from the plastic tub, and then I went back into the hallway. Mum and Dad were in the lounge with the door shut. I stood outside and listened. He's clearly unhappy, Eddie. Can't you see it? Of course I can see it, Amanda, but what on earth do you expect me to do about it? Try talking to him, perhaps? He needs his dad. He needs us both. If you weren't always having a go at me, maybe... Me? Having a go at you? That's just ridiculous. I couldn't face being in the house with them arguing again. I'm going to see Reg, I yelled, and slammed the front door before they could answer. Reg lived in a bungalow next door to Mrs. Banks's house. I'm going to see him more and more lately. There was no shouting at Reg's, and definitely no arguing. It was just Reg and his cup of tea. Just Reg and his tin of biscuits and his endless cups of tea. When I walked past Mrs. Banks's garden, she was standing on her front lawn next to the headless flamingo. I stuck my hands in my pockets and looked down. Are you responsible for this? She shouted as I walked past. Trouble with your sort is there isn't any discipline at home. You're allowed to do exactly what you want, aren't you? Boundaries, that's what you need. Boundaries. Do you hear me? I hurried up Reg's path. Normally I'd shout back, but I didn't want to. Not today. I went around the side of the bungalow to the kitchen door, knocked, then went in. It was always unlocked. Reg was standing by the sink doing some washing up. He had his back to me. Hello, Reg. You fancy a cup of tea? I said, walking to the cupboard and getting out the mugs. Reg turned around, his eyes wide and his soapy hands dripping on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I know you? He said, his face confused. I sighed. Yes, Reg. I'm Maxwell. Maxwell Beckett. Remember? I come and see you nearly every single day. He frowned as he dried his hands on a tea towel. Maxwell, you say? Maxwell. He murmured. I switched the kettle on and put a tea bag in each mug. I got the milk out of the fridge. There wasn't much in it. You're running out, Reg, I said, giving the carton a little shake. Do you want me to go and get you some more for you? Reg took the milk from me. You don't want to be doing that, he laughed awkwardly. We don't even know each other. The kettle clicked off and I poured water into the mugs. Come on, I'll show you who I am, I said, putting the kettle back. I held his elbow and guided him into the lounge. He stood beside me in front of the fireplace. Resting on the mantelpiece was my portrait of Reg that had come first in a national drawing competition. It was framed and behind glass. I picked it up. See this picture of you? I drew it, remember? I won a big prize from my school. I held it towards him. Look, it says, Reg by Maxwell Beckett. That's me. I'm Maxwell. One day I hoped he'd learn to recognise me straight away, but that day hadn't come yet. Maxwell. Ah, yes. I know who you are. Of course I do, he said, but I could tell by his face that he didn't. He settled down into his armchair. Go and get the biscuit tin, would you, Maxwell? There's a new pack of Jammy Dodgers in there. I went into the kitchen, finished making the tea, and got the biscuit tin out of the cupboard. I put everything on a tray, took it into the lounge, and put it on a little table in front of the sofa. I passed Reg his tea and took a slurp of mine. I looked around the tidy room. In one corner stood a dark brown cabinet with big glass doors. The shelves inside were crammed full of old stuff. Reg once said that the contents of that cabinet were priceless, but it all looked like a pile of junk if you asked me. I took the lid off the biscuit tin and pointed it towards him. He took 3 and sat back, resting 2 on his chest and dunking the other in his tea. So, Maxwell, how's things? He said. This was Reg's way of trying to work out who I was. Not very good, actually, Reg. I've had a very bad day, I said. I got in trouble again. First I told everyone about the TV crew coming to the centenary ball tomorrow. Then I was messing about in PE and I banged heads with Charlie Geek. He got a nosebleed and there was blood everywhere and he fainted, and the school think I did it on purpose. But I didn't. I really didn't. It was a complete accident. Reg nodded as he listened. I see. Got a big nose, has he? Sorry? Reg picked up a biscuit from his chest and dunked it in his tea. This Charlie fellow? No, not particularly. Anyway, that doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm not allowed to go to the centenary ball tomorrow. The Jed and Baz TV show is going to be there. They're recording at our school. And now I've got to miss it. I felt my eyes filling up as I bit my lip. Reg nodded a few times as he finished his biscuit. I watched him, waiting for him to say something, as he picked the crumbs off his jumper with his fingertips. There was a long pause, and then, have I ever shown you my collection of mermaid scales? I sighed. I don't know why I expected Reg to have any words of wisdom. He lived in his own world too much. I gave him a weak smile. Mermaid scales? No, Reg, you haven't. He put his tea down and levered himself up. Come with me then, and I'll show you, he said, grinning as he headed towards the class cabinet. I put my mug down and followed him. When he opened the cabinet doors, a whiff of dust and something gross filled my nostrils. It smelled like something was rotting in there. What looked like an old leather shoe was propped up against the side of the glass, and I suspected that was probably the cause of the revolting stench. He moved an old globe to one side and took out a plastic tub, prized the lid off, and pointed it towards me. Here they are, he said in a whisper. Mermaid scales. I peered inside. Lying at the bottom of the tub was a big pile of teardrop-shaped objects. I picked one up and held it to the light. It was smooth and shiny and felt like plastic. I knew exactly what they were. Reg, these are guitar plectrums. You use them to strum the guitar, to pick the strings. They're not mermaid scales. Reg frowned, then scurried his hand around the tub. Guitar plectrums? My grandfather never played the guitar. Why would he keep such things? Let me see. His face scowled as he searched. There must be some scales in here somewhere. Where are they? He began to shake the box around, and a couple of plectrums flew out and onto the floor. Don't worry, Reg, I said, picking them up and then putting them back. Let's find the mermaid scales another day. He stared at the tub, looking confused. Hey, what's this thing? I said, picking up the fat leather shoe. This looks really cool. Reg quickly put the lid back on the box of plectrums. Ah, you found the shrunken head. Wonderful, wonderful. A head? I said, dropping it on the floor. Careful, Maxwell, that's priceless, that is. He bent down and picked it up, turning it over and over in amazement. Where did it come from? I said, wiping my hands on my trousers. My grandfather traded his best boots for this poor old chap in the depths of the Amazon. He ran into a tribe deep in the forest and started off having to bargain for his life and ended up coming away with this fella. He was great at getting people to like him, my granddad was. Reg chuckled to himself as he stared at the shrunken head. It really did look like a dried-up old leather shoe to me. I hoped he'd just got the story muddled up and that was it. In fact, his grandfather's shriveled-up boot. He put it back into the cupboard and picked up an oval-shaped piece of wood, the size of his palm. It looked like a wooden egg, and around the outside was a delicate carved pattern. He held it up. What's this? I asked. Reg put his head on one side. It's a box, he said. A musical box. I stared at the strange wooden egg. A box? Doesn't look like a box. How do you open it? Reg didn't say anything. Can I have a look? I said. He paused for a moment and then passed it to me. It was quite heavy and I needed 2 hands to hold it. I turned it around carefully and examined the surface, which was carved with tiny swirling patterns. There's no way of opening it, I said. looking at it closely. I gave it a little shake. I could hear something rattling. What's inside? Reg frowned at the egg and rubbed his eyebrow. I can't remember, he said sadly. It was though the answer was locked away in his brain, but he'd lost the key. Let's not worry about it now, Reg, I said. I put the carved wooden egg back on the cabinet shelf, where it wobbled and then lay on one side, resting against a black felt hat. I reached for the old globe that was wedged in a corner. It was so faded you could barely make out the outline of the countries, and there were tiny holes punctured here and there. What do all these holes mean? I asked. Reg opened his mouth, but he just looked blank. I don't know, he said. He looked embarrassed, so I quickly put the globe back and closed the cabinet doors. I know. Should we have another biscuit? I said, and Reg's face brightened. What a marvellous idea. Let's do that, he said, heading back to his armchair. He sat down and picked up another jammy dodger. That's rotten about not being able to go to your big school party, he said. You must have been looking forward to it for a long time. He had been listening after all. I felt a knot in the middle of my stomach tighten. He was right. It was rotten, and it wasn't fair. I can't believe they're not letting me go after everything I've done for them, I said, digging my nails into my palms. Well, can't be helped, said Reg, brushing crumbs from his chin. If the school have said you can't go, that's it, I guess. Rules are rules. I looked at Reg and he frowned at me as a big smile spread across my face. Ah, but I don't do rules, Reg, I said, raising my eyebrows and giving them a little wiggle. I took another biscuit and sat back on the sofa. My heart raced as I thought of my plan. Maxwell Beckett is going to the ball, whether they like it or not, I said.